Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I'm able to play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here, you can be able to see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. Today is a very special episode of Blind Impressions, because today we're going to be talking about the accessibility in The Last of Us Part 2. But this game is so massive that I'm not doing this alone. I brought in Courtney Craven from CanIPlayThat.com, and we'll be going over our impressions of The Last of Us and the accessibility settings in it. But before we do that, I have to give a bit of a PSA. I, full disclosure, was brought in as an accessibility consultant to Naughty Dog to help work on the accessibility of this game. Now, for those who have been subscribing for either just recently or have been here for a long time, you might have sort of seen the journey that I have made in Blind Gamer, in this amazing journey that I've been on for the past 5 years. So when I say that this is a huge deal personally for me and a huge career highlight, to be able to be brought into this beloved of a studio to work on the accessibility of this game, this is a huge deal for me. Now, I know you probably are very skeptical about me talking about this game from an impressions or even a possible review standpoint, but I highly encourage you to be able to continue watching this video because I think it's worth it. I was paid to consult. I was not paid to review. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you be okay with that. And if you are a longtime audience member of this channel, you would know that that I am always above board and as honest and transparent as I can. So yes, I did work on the game, but I am so happy to be able to talk about the accessibility of this publicly for the very first time. So with that being said, I hope you continue watching the video because it's a great one. I'm very, very happy. So let's jump into the accessibility of The Last of Us Part 2. So I don't like this is an interesting video to start with because there is so much in this game already. I'm just gonna say it. It is the most accessible game ever. Yeah. Like in all caps. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Courtney?
You know, it's the reason that I don't finish games like this very often is just because there's so much and I get so worn out trying to figure out ways to get around barriers. And in this one, this is the first game that I've ever played where if I find something that I'm struggling with or I find something that is exhausting to me, I can just, let's go into the options and see if there's a thing that I can flip on to go around that, and there always is.
Yeah.
Like there has not been one thing that I've run into across anything that that I haven't been able to find a workaround or something that will at least make the experience easier for me.
Exactly, and that's one thing I noticed too, is that there was always an option you could turn on or off at any given point that would allow you to be able to to work with what you're trying to do in that moment. And there was even this morning when I was sort of just figuring out what to really talk about, there was features that I had discovered. I was like, oh wow, I didn't even think that was even in there, and it just was. And I was like it wasn't like I found it's like, oh man, that would have helped me in this section, but it was something that I felt like, yeah, for those who might have, there was certain sections I was thinking of that it could help those people who are having trouble with it. Like even just there was so many subtle things in here.
The thing that I'm finding about it is, like I mentioned in my review that I struggled with you know, in listen mode, when you see the overlays of the characters in the black and white. I tried your fix with turning on high contrast mode, and they were just a brightly colored blob then. But then I realized, wait, there are like 6 more options if I go into the visual menu that I can try. So I still need to go back, even though I've spent like 15 hours in the game just messing around with options, seeing what does what. and still going back to try to see, okay, well, maybe this will help.
And that's it. Let's start let's start from the very beginning. In that, when you turn the game on, they have something that I had never seen before. There are 3 templates you could turn on. If you're blind, you can turn on the blind accessibility template. If you're deaf, you can turn on the deaf accessibility template. If you have motor disability, you can turn that template on. And it gives you a list of all the settings that it will turn on for each template. And it's the recommended settings. Now, I'm normally not a fan necessarily of recommended settings, because I feel like you should be able to customize your play experience however you wish. But just by turning those on, I think like it was so like such an amazing experience just to be able to kind of jump in. And if you feel like you need to turn something on or off or adjust something, you can always go back and change different things, options on the fly. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought that was pretty cool. And for me, seeing that at the start of the game and seeing just how expansive those templates, those presets were, to me really spoke to their dedication to it. Because, a lot of games, they'll come with the dedicated accessibility menus, and then there's like 5 options in it. There's, there's subtitles, there's colorblind friendly mode, there's speech to text or text to speech, and that's kind of it, right? But here, it's like, you can tell that they really put in the time with playtesting and with consulting, and I hope it sets a precedent for how every studio is going to approach accessibility, or at least AAA studios, because I know it takes a budget to do that, but it was such a nice feeling to be like, they really put the work into this.
Yeah.
They've been listening, they've been attentive. They obviously did a lot of homework and implementation and testing, and it pays off, because like you said, it is the most accessible game ever.
Yeah. And they have proven pretty much all of what we within accessibility have been pushing for so long. They've said that they started accessibility from the very beginning of the development process, and it shows. Also, we wanted to be able to customize our options if we needed to. That's in here, and it shows. They brought in play testers, and like I said at the beginning of this video, yes, I was one and I consulted on it, but they brought in they brought in people to be able to help sort of customize it, and they even made mistakes at the very beginning, but it was early enough that they could be able to adjust and adapt and work with it, so that it was such a big part of their development process that it shows how much care they put into this. Like I think I even said it to you before, there's more accessibility options than I think in the entire settings menu.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and they all exist in other parts of the settings. So it's not like that they're gate-kept in just the accessibility menu. But if you wanted to be able to customize your play session in a way that makes it so that it removes barriers for you to be able to play, that in and of itself just basically removes the frustration that we all have when we're playing games, when we're trying to battle the game as well as battle the story and the gameplay itself.
Exactly.
It removes that part of it and allows us to enjoy the story and the game that they wanted players to experience.
Right. And the thing that stood out for me was, a lot of times in accessibility and in the conversations around accessibility, you see it's not like an intentional ranking of, okay, first we're going to do deaf accessibility, then mobility, then vision, and there's always that order of importance. So there's always one group of players that's probably going to be left out or find at least more barriers than others. This one, I think, will be the first game that there really isn't.
Yeah.
And I think that that's amazing.
Yeah, like even seeing this week with PlayStation putting out basically the entire list of their accessibility options, and then seeing Grant Can I Play that react to it, being able to like just be able to like use the thumbsticks, and you don't have to like worry about like one controls the other. Like it made him so happy that it was like that's why, like, it's moments like that that makes this game so special for disabled players. And again, this will set a precedent moving forward. There is before The Last of Us Part 2, and then there's after The Last of Us Part 2. Like, this is literally a game changer in 100% the way. Like, this moves the industry so much forward with regards to accessibility that we're gonna be very hard to ignore now. So let's get into more of the specifics of it, and I'll start with sort of the blind accessibility. With the accessibility settings for the blind in general, there are options that allows sightless players to be able to play this game in such a way that they can be able to play, like, technically anyone who is watching this who doesn't have even a visual disability, you can play this with your eyes closed and you can still be able to complete the game. Like, that's how in depth the audio is in this. There are audio cues that tells you which button to push. Also, what even the object you are interacting with. It gives you a sound effect of what that object is that you're about to interact with.
Square button, scan for enemies. Circle button, scan for items.
There is text-to-speech in every single piece of text that is on screen. It has text-to-speech, and it will read it out to you. And it will even, like, there's even an audio slider of volume that you can adjust just for that feature alone. If you want that to be a little bit louder than everything else, you can totally do that. They also actually enhanced a feature that they've used before in Uncharted 4. They called it Thief Mode in the original, but they realized that it was such an amazing accessibility feature that they actually enhanced it for The Last of Us Part 2, and that was high contrast mode, where it highlights your character and your allies as blue, and the enemies as red, and the items as yellow, and it kind of gives an outline and a bit of a glow to all the environments in it, so you can actually be able to see and distinguish what is what in the world that you're in, so that you're not having to try to be able to like distinguish, okay, where are certain things in the world, and how far is that enemy away from me. It's just amazing. And what's great too is you can actually swipe left on the touchpad to turn it on and off at any given moment. So if you need that little extra high contrast, you can totally do that in this, and it just looks and feels absolutely amazing. And there's also a feature in there that I was so impressed with. Everyone's been saying on the PlayStation controller, DualShock controller, that the touchpad is useless. There's no one really using it. People just use it to be able to like bring up a map of the game. You can use that touchpad to zoom into the screen, and you can zoom as far or as little as you want. It is so much better than the PlayStation Zoom, and I'll even argue to say I enjoy using the zoom better than I have on Xbox magnifier or Windows magnifier.
Really?
And that's not a knock against Microsoft. They have an amazing magnifier, but this was so intuitive to use. You just double tap the touchpad and you can zoom in, and you can see like a cursor of where your thumb is, and you can be able to move around the screen just based on that zoom alone, and it doesn't interfere with any other button press or any other thing you're trying to do. And there was so much that was involved in the touchpad. You can be able to swipe left if you have high contrast turned on to turn it on or off as you need it to. You can swipe up to be able to hear text-to-speech of whether or not it tells you whether or not you're standing, crouching, swimming, whatever, and then it tells you how much health you have left. Like, there is so much, just that touchpad alone It was so cool to see. The HUD scaling, not only does it increase the little HUD like on the bottom right corner where it shows you what weapon you're using and stuff like that, but it increases the HUD of the crossbar when you're having to switch weapons. It increases the size of the buttons and the text prompts and everything, like even just the text themselves. Whenever you're reading notes, it also increases the font size in that, but it also reads out text to speech, the entire thing. And there are some custom words in there that I didn't think the text to speech would pick up, and yet it did. Oh, it swears. This text to speech swears like a mother.
So it's not censored like Netflix.
It is not censored at all, and it's great. There is so much just in the like accessibility, like for blind accessibility alone, that anybody who has a visual impairment can be able to play. And I was able to play this game in a way that I've never been able to before. I was able to sit back and relax. I didn't have to be so far away from the or I didn't have to be so close to the TV screen. I could be further away. I could be sitting on my couch and I could play this game without having to worry about, wait, what does that text say? Or wait, what is that? Where is that enemy? I can't see it. There was no barriers to entry. Once I figured out my system of figuring of like here, okay, I'll use zoom in this section, I'll use high contrast in this section. The text to speech works here. Like there was so many things I just didn't have to worry about, that it removed all the barriers I normally would have, and allowed me to play the game and enjoy it as the game in and of itself. And what I loved too was that it kept the challenge of the game alive. I was so afraid that these settings would sort of just make the game too easy, and it would just not allow you to be able to play it, or it would just allow you to kind of like breeze through all encounters. But it was still a challenge. There was still moments I'm like, okay, how do I defeat this one section? How do I get past these people? How do I survive this encounter? Like, it was so much that it just removed all that, but it still kept that challenge alive. And that's just a fraction of all the accessibility settings that I found just within the blind and visual accessibility options. Courtney, what about you? What did you discover in the deaf and hard of hearing accessibility options?
You know, a thing that I don't think I have ever mentioned this in any of the hard of hearing deaf reviews that I've done before, but a large part of being a hard of hearing person is that you spend all of your time when you're interacting with anything that makes a sound actively listening, and that level of having to give things your undivided attention is mentally and physically exhausting, you know. So that's a big part of where fatigue comes from playing games for me. With this, I didn't have that issue because, you know, I didn't have to sit there and actively listen, like, okay, let me tune the world out and make sure that I'm listening so that nobody's going to sneak up on me. I'm not going to get blindsided by an enemy. I'm not going to die and have to, you know, constantly save so that, oh, well, this enemy's going to sneak up on me. I'm probably going to die. I better save. So, you know, there's that habit of saving constantly. With this, it was the first game that level of exhaustion from having to actively listen was minimized, because yes, there are all of the basic deaf and hard of hearing accessibility features. Like, there's massive subtitle options, and they're nice and big, and there's vibration feedback, and, you know, everything that is standard in most games is done so well in this that it makes that standard in every other game feel like, okay, well, you didn't do this, so you know. And it was so cool to, and then be able to dig further into the menu and play around with, okay, well, maybe this setting will help me out, or maybe this one will make this easier, because, you know, there is still that issue. Like, you're always going to be a hard of hearing player playing the game, right? There's going to be things that you're gonna struggle with, no matter how great the accessibility is. There's always a workaround, always. And that really changed it for me, from being yet another game that will take me like a year to finish because I need to take breaks from it because it's just exhausting, to one that I will play straight through before I give my attention to anything else. which that's the game changer for me. And the other thing that I really loved about the deaf and hard of hearing settings in this was that little arrow that's in the corner to show you who is speaking and from where. That's something that is never included, like never in any game. And so you view cinematics and it's like, okay, well, there's someone speaking off screen. Where is he? You know, because if you can't get that spatial audio, you're missing a big part of the immersion. You know, like if somebody is echoing because they're far behind you, or you know, anything like that. And it was just so cool to see that it wasn't an issue, you know, because that little arrow, even if the person is off screen, even if like you're playing in the world and you have a follower and they're quite a ways behind you, or the scene suddenly changes, that arrow is always going to be there to pop up and to show you exactly where people are speaking from. And I think that will add a level of immersion for deaf and hard of hearing players that I don't think any game has achieved so far, because it's so easy to overlook the immersion aspect of video games, and that, like, they really didn't in this one, and it was just so cool. And the subtitles are so well done, because, you know, in a lot of games you see it's voice acted one way and then scripted another. Like they'll use shortened words or speak with an accent, and in this it's all included in the subtitles. There wasn't any you know, formal perfect English in the subtitles. It all fits the characters, and the ways that they speak are mirrored in how they're subtitled.
How did you find traversing the world, or like even in combat? Like, was there, like, did you have anything that stood out in that?
The you know, the thing that really made a surprising difference was the what is it, the L1 to dodge, that prompt. That made a huge difference. And it wasn't anything that, like, I noticed that it was in the presets and I'm like, okay, well, how's that gonna help me? Like, if there's a dodge prompt, I'm obviously going to be able to see the enemy coming at me. And I had never realized how much listening is involved in that. So when there's a prompt, it's automatic. You know, you don't have to think, okay, well, what is that sound? Did I hear something? Was that outside my apartment, or was it in the game? You know, there's that dodge prompt that is indisputable. Okay, get out of the way. And so that really made a big unexpected difference for me in how infrequently I died. So instead of like 30 times throughout the game, I think so far I've maybe died twice, and one time was just because I fell off a ledge, which there is even a setting for that. So
yeah, there is a setting that if you're close to a ledge, that it's good. Like if you fall, like if you're gonna fall to your death, it'll not only just like play a sound that will like say, hey, you're near an edge, but it also will kind of physically stop you from getting past that edge. How'd you find it when you were like, when there was like enemies kind of around you? How did you find the combat for that?
That was amazing. And you know, I've applauded a lot of games like Ubisoft. I don't think we ever determined how you say it. They really kind of led the way with that, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins, and I think that Naughty Dog has taken what others have done really well in enemy proximity and location and like perfected it. Because the difference between other games that have that feature and this one is anytime in the game, you know, you have these big open areas where there are multiple enemies and it's a shootout, you know. Every single enemy that is in that area, whether or not you can see them or hear them or anything, if they're an enemy that you have to kill, no matter how far they are from you, if they're there and you have to kill them, there is a indicator for that enemy. But it's just helpful enough to make it perfect.
That is really, really cool. Before we kind of summarize our thoughts, I do want to mention that there is a lot of motor disability accessibility settings in here as well. We couldn't touch on it in this video, but stay tuned to caniplaythat.com for review coverage of that coming up very soon. We just couldn't have it for the review date for this video to come out. So there's a lot of settings in there for motor disabilities, and we're looking forward to be able to discovering more as we go. There's just a lot we couldn't even touch on in this, so stay tuned to caniplaythat.com for all the details on that. To kind of summarize in general, what we said before, when we say this is the most accessible game we have ever played, like it's not 100% the most, like 100% most accessible game, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Like there's still little tweaks that they could be able to do, but it felt like that they just sort of, in a way, turned on all the settings that they have as a developers to adjust certain things, and it just gave they gave those settings to the players to adjust it for themselves.
Right.
And we didn't even touch. Oh my God, we didn't even touch on the difficulty settings. So okay, real quickly. There are difficulty settings in this, like in the last one, and they have a pretty decent sort of like difficulty level depending on how hard you want the game to be or how easier you want the game to be, based on if you want to do story or full on like hardcore mode. But what was so cool was that yes, you could be able to set those difficulty settings. You can not only adjust those difficulty settings at any given point in the game just by going to the options, but you can also customize certain aspects of that difficulty. You can change, if you're like, I want stealth to be a little bit easier, you can make just the stealth easier and the rest is all moderate or hardcore. If you want to make the your like health not decrease so fast, you can change just your player difficulty so you're not taking so much damage. Like, and it's so granular and so customizable that you can literally create your own custom difficulty setting that works best for you.
Yeah.
That in and of it, like, that is just one of the most amazing options I have seen in this. And you could, like, I mean, I have Courtney here because she's like doing the Def and Hardy review for Can I Play That, and I'm the media editor for Can I Play That as well. And I know that it sounds like, because I consulted with Naughty Dog, that it sounds like I'm just basically becoming like a corporate shill at this point. But this like, I am not kidding. There are many times I was surprised, I was shocked, I wept at certain points of just small things that just made this game like so much more of an enjoyable experience to play. And in summary, I mean, that's kind of where I want to take this, is that this, as much as we're saying that this is the most accessibility settings we've ever seen in a game, this is a game changer, it really comes down to how it affects someone who has always kind of brushed off these kind of games because they were too difficult to play. And I would encourage you, if you want to sort of like as a recommendation, Courtney, you can give your thoughts on, as far as your official dev review, but in my particular thoughts as far as whether or not to recommend this, 1000%.
Oh yeah.
Because there's always something in some option that if you're having trouble with, you can try certain aspects of it that from all different areas of accessibility that could possibly help you and play this. If you feel like the template is just not enough, there's always more. They're always, and they even like and if you turn on accessibility settings, basically it's going to send that information to Naughty Dog and Sony so that they know how to be able to improve upon it and what features you did use the most, what features you didn't use, and they're able to they're going to be able to they said they're going to be able to tweak this as they go, and I hope that they share this data, but like 1000,000,000% buy this game. Courtney, your thoughts.
I mirror that, and even beyond that, if this kind of game isn't your game, or isn't your type of game, you don't like the genre, get it just to see the progress that's been made, because it is the most, especially if you've been working in this industry for a while, doing ally work, I have never felt so validated by a game. You know, I've been doing this for 6 years, just doing mostly deaf accessibility before we branched into all of it with Can I Play That? And I know I said this about Gears 5, and Gears 5 is still an amazing game, but literally everything that any reviewer for Can I Play That has ever complained about being a barrier, they have addressed it with this game. And it's amazing to see what barriers can be brought down when you really commit to making an accessible experience. You prioritize inclusion instead of, we're gonna make the prettiest game ever. And then, you know, the icing on the cake for that is they did. It's like, the game is gorgeous.
Oh God, it is amazing to look at.
And the voice acting is amazing. The whole thing is just stunning. But knowing that on top of all of that, they also put the same amount of work into accessibility is awesome.
Yeah, this is a true masterpiece in all sense of the word. And we're going to be talking about this decades to come.
Yeah.
This is a real touch point, and not only just within the video game industry, but in the accessibility community in general. And I hope that we can come back to this conversation 5-10 years from now and be able to like say that this was just the beginning.
Right. And you know, I think, who was it? John Knowles from Turn 10 or Playground. Forza John. He had said, I think it was at GA conference, that accessibility is a race that we all win. And it's like we have a new front runner in the race, and it's going to be so exciting to see every other studio, especially the big ones that have already, you know, been so committed to it, to see that race of innovation of, okay, how can we do this and do it even better?
Yeah, I can't wait. I seriously can't wait. And even after, like, if you're watching this video and it's after the game has already been out for a while, just go to caniplaythat.com and search for Last of Us. You can really see all of the information of accessibility for this game, because there's a lot, and guaranteed there's going to be a lot more stuff we're going to discover as we go. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions about the game, make sure you leave it in the comments down below, or ask both Courtney and I on Twitter. I'll have a link to Courtney's Twitter in the description down below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Give a thumbs up for just accessibility in general, because this is a pretty cool achievement, and I'm so happy for this game to exist now. And if you want to see more content from myself or from Can I Play That, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and also hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified as to when new videos come out. Thank you so much for watching. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video. As always, as always, we remain obediently yours. Bye.
Bye.